Good early afternoon, marching toward Christmas. I'm Andy Andrews. You have joined us live for the Blue Plate Special. I've got a surprise down here I'm trying to put and not break. I've got a surprise for you later. We're going to have a great time today. Let me tell you a little sad stuff first, but it's not really sad. Not really. But we're here at the Wisdom Harbor Studios in Orange Beach, Alabama at the wharf. It's a pretty day. Cold outside, though. Cold. It's like in the 50s. Hey, if you're on Facebook, click that notification button to know when we're live. If this is your first time, just click that notification button. And make sure you turn the notifications on your phone so that you will be notified when we go live here for anything, including the Blue Plate Special. Hey, Diane Hale in Tennessee. I'd like to say hey to all the guys in Twitterland and Instagramville and the Republic of YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, also please click that subscribe button. Hey, have any of you seen the podcast yet? The podcast just came out today. The Professional Noticer podcast just came out this morning, and I think you're going to love it. It's an interview with Mark Lowry and Buddy Green, and it's, they are the two guys who wrote Mary Did You Know? Mark wrote the words, and Buddy wrote the music, and the whole thing, we're talking about that song, and it's funny. I really think you're going to like it. Hey, Bonnie Nix, how are you doing? Patricia Clapp, Lacey in northern Idaho. I read something about northern Idaho. There's some place in Idaho that you can walk through 45 miles worth of Christmas lights. I don't think it's like 45 miles of a walk. I think it's like 45 miles of strings put together. There's Alan Marcus watching right now from London, England, and Irene from Oak Grove, Louisiana, right next to London, England. 35 degrees in eastern Washington. I saw that. Hey, from Joplin, Missouri. Hey, let me ask you guys this real quick before I tell you a couple stories. Did you get this week's promo code? Did you get it? If you're on the VIP newsletter, you should have gotten this week's promo code last Friday to get a big percentage off the entire store. And if you're not currently on the VIP list, just go to andyandrews.com/VIP and you'll get your first promo code today. But codes are coming out every Friday, but only to the people on the VIP mailing list. So all you got to do is sign up. I want to tell you just a couple of things that have gone on since Thursday, since we saw you last. A couple of my friends have passed away, and it's very sad, but both of them lived long, great lives. One was Ray Perkins, who was the coach for Alabama, who followed Bear Bryant. Can you imagine following Bear Bryant? That's not anything anybody wants to do, but man, he jumped in there with both feet. And I tell you, just kind of an interesting story about Ray that taught me a lot. Kenny Stabler, the quarterback for the Oakland Raiders, lived down the street from us. And so Kenny had asked me, would I play in his golf tournament and go speak, to one of the banquet nights of the golf tournament. And I said, Kenny, I don't play golf. I don't know how to play golf. And he said, oh, that's okay. No, but, none of us, we just kind of hack around. And I said, well, I don't have any golf clubs. And he said, no worries. Just, we'll get you a set of loaner clubs. And so that's no problem at all. And so I said, all right. And he said, yeah, we're having like teams of 4, and it will be like 2 celebrities per team. And I said, so I get to be on a team with 2 different celebrities? And he said, ha, ha, you're going to be one of our celebrities. I said, you ain't got very many celebrities, huh? And he said, "Oh, shut up." So anyway, I went. Now, I'm an Alabama fan, all right? I grew up watching Alabama. I grew up with Bear Bryant. And one of the things that I had noticed, because I'd watched Ray Perkins for 3 or 4 or 5 years or something like that, or I forget how many years it was I watched him. But I didn't know Ray Perkins, but every time I saw him, he seemed incredibly mean. I mean, he just seemed kind of mad, I mean, he was always just like, like that. And I don't really think that much about him, I don't have to be around him, right? I mean, but it's just, it's our coach, and I'm glad I'm not playing for him. But so anyway, I get out there that day, and the golf tournament, the charity golf tournament, Kenny Stabler's thing is going to be at the Grand Hotel. They're in Point Clear. Beautiful, beautiful place, beautiful golf course. And so I pull up, and somebody says, "Hey, Andy, here's your stuff, and we've already put your loaner clubs on the cart, and just walk along there, and you'll see who you're sharing your cart with. Your names will be on the front of the cart, and your clubs will be right there." So I'm walking down, and I'm seeing all these celebrity names, going, "Wow, they're here. Oh gosh, wow, they're here." And then I get down and I see Andy Andrews and Ray Perkins, and my blood ran cold. I was like, "Oh my God, he is going to hate my guts." Because, you watch him and you think he's an incredible competitor. And I mean, he's just like, oh my God, and I can't play golf. He is going to hate me. I'm on his team. Oh, he's going to hate me. I almost like turned around and just like ran, told Kenny I was sick or something. I was like, oh my gosh. But he was really nice. I mean, he was really nice. And so we start playing, and I said right off the bat, "Look, I don't know how to do this. I can't play. And so he was incredibly nice, and would like tell me, "All right, we'll do this and stand here. All right, try this. Oh, that's all right. Don't worry about that." I mean, he was really nice. And it was just, and what I learned was, now, I'm working as a comedian at the time, right? And what I learned was, I thought, well, of course. The only time I was ever seeing him was right before or right after a game, when he had, he was working, he was intense, and so the only time I ever saw him on TV, he was like that. And I'm like, well, me thinking that he's just mean is as crazy as somebody seeing me on TV and thinking I'm funny 24 hours a day, And so it helped me see beyond some people, but he was very, very nice. So a little caveat to that story is the very next week, that was on a Saturday, the very next week, this is a Wednesday, Polly and I had gone to walk, and we come back, and there was this big, I forgot to tell you that during that day, he said, these clubs are really kind of, they're a little short for somebody as tall as you. And he said, where did you get these? And I said, "Oh, these are not mine. They're a loaner bunch from the club." And he said, "So do you have clubs?" And I said, "No, I don't. Do you think I would play this bad if I had clubs?" And he laughed. Didn't say anything else. But then Wednesday afterwards, Polly and I are walking. We come back to the house, and there, leaning up against the front door, is this huge FedEx box. And it was a complete set of Wilson irons and what do you call those other things? Irons and what? Drivers, yeah. You can tell how much I play. So, but a complete set, and they were from Ray. Just sent them to me, gave them to me. I saw him several times after that, but he was a great guy. But he passed away this past week, and the other good friend of mine that passed away was Charlie Pride. And oh man, hey, that Charlie is such a sweet spirit. I saw Kevin Perkins on there. Kevin, Charlie Pride, right? Charlie would do that while he was singing, yeah, all the time. You know, when people would clap or something, Charlie would go. And so we always we would do that. Anytime Charlie come on the radio, Polly and I go, right? And just a great guy. His wife, Rosine, very smart. They lived in Dallas, and you know, I've told people through the years, I say, yeah, you know, they had to do the tour of the Stars homes in Nashville. You could take a much larger tour of the homes the Stars lost in Nashville. But Charlie and Rosine lived in Dallas, and Charlie made the money and Rosine managed the money, and they, you know, Charlie made one mistake early on. He was at a casino out in Las Vegas, and they told him, "Go play," and you know, he thought they were just wanting him out there, and he didn't know. And he's playing, and he lost a bunch of money. Well, they took it out of his pay, and he was like, "What?" and so, but Rosine, after that, Rosine took over the money, and I don't know if this is kind of public record, but last time I even heard anything about it, Charlie was worth like $70 million, and this was like 10 years ago. And but just such a fine man. One quick Charlie Pride story. I was on tour with Kenny Rogers and Ronnie Millsap. It was me, Ronnie Millsap, and Kenny Rogers, and C.K. Spurlock, who was the promoter of the whole thing, was about to he was going to take that, and it was the last day for us for a certain time, and then taking Charlie Pride somewhere on him. So Charlie was coming in a day early to see the show. And so I'm in Ronnie's dressing room, and so I'm talking to Ronnie and his wife Joyce, and CK comes in. CK says, "Hey, Ronnie, you got a telegram here." And I forget what it was even about. It was kind of a nothing telegram, but Ronnie said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "Just read it to me." And so CK's unwrapping it, and CK said, "Charlie will be here in a few minutes. I told him you'd want him to come by the dressing room." And I said, "Oh, yeah. So CK reads the telegram. And Ronnie says, "So Charlie's coming by here in a minute?" So I said, "Yeah." He said, "Read that telegram to me one more time." And he reads it to him one more time. He said, "Now put it back in your pocket and come in with Charlie and then tell me, 'Oh, I forgot. I've got a telegram for you.'" CK says, "Okay." So 15 minutes later, here comes Charlie, you know, hug Charlie, and, you know, everybody did. And so we all kind of sit back down, and CK starts out the door, and he turns back and says, "Oh, Ronnie, I forgot, a telegram came in for you." And Ronnie said, "Okay, let me have it." And so CK, you know, Ronnie held his hand out, and CK put it right in his hand. And Charlie's sitting right beside Ronnie. And so Ronnie pulls his dark glasses down a little bit. He undoes it, pulls it out, and kind of tilts it toward Charlie so Charlie could see it. And word for word says what's on the telegram. And I'm watching Charlie over there, and he didn't know what to say. But a few minutes later, CK comes back in and says, "Charlie, come here. Need to take you so-and-so, so-and-so." And so I go out when they go out. And when they get out into the hallway, Charlie said, "I knew he wasn't blind. I knew he wasn't blind. I knew he wasn't that blind. It's all an act. I knew he wasn't that blind." So that's what I think about every time I think about Charlie. So, all right. Now you ready to get on with the other stuff. I want to talk about Santa Claus, then I'm going to read you a story. All right. I want to tell you just some Santa Claus facts, and I'm going to show you a couple of pictures that I have collected through the years. But here in the studio it's practically kind of a museum. And did you get that stuff for me, Matt? Yeah, I did. And so we've put all kind of stuff out here, and I've saved stuff to just different eras, and I'm glad to have a place that people can come see it. But I got a couple of pictures that are kind of funny. But just a little brief background on Santa Claus. Then I'll do the Christmas story, and then we'll let you go. But Santa Claus is just kind of the beginnings. Contrary to what a lot of people think, the Santa Claus that we see today, they're riding the sleigh and giving gifts and, fat and the white beard and the red suit and the white fur. This wasn't, people think that was the creation of the Coca-Cola Company. All right. And although there are Christmas advertising campaigns in the 30s and 40s, they were kind of a key to popularizing that image. Santa, can be seen in his modern form decades before Coca-Cola's illustrators got to work. Okay. From the description given in Clement Moore's poem, The Night Before Christmas, it was just 1822, all the way through the vision of Thomas Nast and then later Norman Rockwell. Santa gradually became this jolly, red-suited figure that we know today. But in the 13th century, now think about this, in the 13th century, the name Santa Claus was kind of first used. Because the name has its roots in like a Dutch name for St. Nicholas, which was Sinterklaas. Okay, with two A's, Claus, Sinterklaas. But that was based on St. Nicholas, who's a 4th century Greek saint who his reputation was secret gift giving. And he would, they believed he put coins in the shoes that people left out for him, And he was also famous for presenting 3 daughters of this Christian man with dowries, so they would not have to become prostitutes. Isn't that great? I mean, when you think about it, Santa fighting prostitution in the 4th century, I think it's just wonderful. Now in Europe, all right, there was the Feast of St. Nicholas, which was real popular like throughout the Middle Ages. And after the Reformation, in the 16th century, that celebration died out in most of the Protestant countries, except for Holland, where the celebration of Sinterklaas lived on and Santa fighting prostitution. Another important tributary, I guess, like a thing that kind of added to the image of Santa Claus was Father Christmas. He was known as like Old Father Christmas, Sir Christmas, Lord Christmas. And this, as you can imagine, is like a traditional figure in England, okay, and was identified with the Old English god Woden, which was part of Odin, kind of like Odin. It's all pagan gods, but he typically represented the spirit of good cheer at Christmas, but was not associated with children or bringing gifts. Right? I mean, not even associated with children or gifts. Probably still fighting prostitution. Although the east coast of America, when we started, was kind of full of Dutch settlers, it wasn't until the early 19th century, the 1800s, when Sinterklaas would come, really all the way and give birth to what we know today as the Americanized version of Santa Claus. And it says following the Revolutionary War, you had the New York Historical Society, and they promoted St. Nicholas as their patron saint of both the society and the city. And it was in 1810 that the society hosted its first St. Nicholas anniversary dinner. And he was still shown as like a religious figure, but now you can see pictures of him. He was clearly depositing gifts in stockings that were hung on the fireside. And it kind of was rewarding the goodness of children. Okay, so a year before the New York Historical Society's feast, the author Washington Irving, here's where this came from. Washington Irving had written about Santa and described a jolly St. Nicholas character who flew in a reindeer-pulled sleigh and delivered presents by going down chimneys. So the next key step to securing that image of Santa Claus that we have was that 1822 poem, The Night Before Christmas by Clement Moore. And Moore, when this came The Night Before Christmas, Moore, he took Washington Irving's descriptive elements from German and Norse legends to create this winking, sleigh-riding saint, and also the names for the flying reindeer. And as time went by, more was added to the Santa Claus legend. The cartoon Thomas Nast, he was a cartoonist. Thomas Nast established kind of the bounds of Santa Claus's current look with an initial illustration right in the middle of the Civil War in Harper's Weekly. It was part of this illustration that was titled A Christmas Furlough. And in later Thomas Nast drawings, he also drew Santa's home at the North Pole. That was added as the thing we all thought North Pole. And a workshop for building toys and a large book filled with the names of children who had been naughty or nice. How about that? And so through the years, you can go on the internet and see all these different kinds of photographs of Santa and see the different ones. But I've always been curious about, especially during the World War II era, you can see Santa in a uniform on one thing. Santa Claus has gone to war, and but I have two that. I collect these magazines, and so I've always thought these two were so funny. Here's the first one. It's Santa Claus smoking. Didn't know he smoked, did you? It's a gift of pleasure from Lucky Strike. And Santa says, "My spirit, the spirit of Christmas giving, is abroad in the land. It's a gift that expresses that spirit and brings pleasure to every home. A gift of Lucky Strike." Santa smoking. Ho, ho, ho. And then here is Santa in a Camel cigarettes ad. So I have these framed because we put them up. Camels are so mild, it says, and so full-flavored, they'll give real smoking pleasure to every smoker on your Christmas list. The smart, gay Christmas carton has gift building right in for your personal greeting. And there's also Santa on a Prince Albert can. So I got some more really weird stuff. You like my shirt today? My shirt was a gift from Sonny Brownlee. Sonny Brownlee in Columbus, Mississippi. So I'm going to tell you a story today about a Christmas parade. Okay? Joyce Martin wants to know what year. I don't know that I have that on here. I usually, I collect these war year. Well, hang on. This was before World War II, for sure. You know how we know that? Because the Lucky Strike package is still green. And when World War II started, the government confiscated all the green dye. Needed it for uniforms and paints and all like that. And so a lot of things that had traditionally been green were no longer able to be green because they couldn't get the dye. They couldn't get the color pigment. And so Lucky Strike actually used that as a positive. You know, you talk about choosing your perspective. And so Lucky Strike began a campaign where they changed to red, the red Lucky Strike carton, but their campaign was Lucky Strike Green has gone to war. And so that's how we know that was before World War II, because Santa Claus is smoking green Lucky Strikes. Okay. Hey, remember, if you haven't gotten the promo code, all you got to do is go sign up on the VIP mailing list on andyandrews.com/VIP, and you get your promo code. And we're putting those promo codes out every single week, every single Friday. So let me tell you a Christmas story. This is one that I wrote probably 15 years ago, I guess. And it's called The Christmas Parade. Okay? Just hear those sleigh bells ringling, ting, ting, tingling too. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you. Terry Henley sang excitedly as she washed the breakfast dishes. At 2:00 that very afternoon, she was to lead the Sawyerton Springs Combined Church Choir Carolers in the annual Christmas parade. Terry, an alto in the Grace Fellowship Baptist Church Choir, has sung with the carolers for the past 13 years. They are a mixture of voices from the Baptist Church and Bowman's Pond United Methodist, a combination that produces an occasional disagreement about song selection. The Methodists, being more traditional, prefer carols like "O Little Town of Bethlehem" and "Joy to the World," while the Baptists seem to be more of a Frosty the Snowman bunch. Finishing in the kitchen, Terry mentally went over the song list. Sleigh Ride was first, followed by Away in the Manger, Oh Holy Night, and I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. Those 4 songs she was certain would cover the parade route, which was only 3 blocks long. Even then, Terry thought, we'll have to sing fast. Across town at that very moment, Billy Pat Williams was explaining to Dave Wink the procedure he wanted followed for the ping pong ball drop. Dave is a pilot from Foley who has his own airplane and a crop dusting business. Crop dusting being what it is in December, Dave has had to resort to other sources of income. Now look, Dave, Billy Pat said, we have 500 of these ping pong balls and they're all numbered. Some of the numbers correspond to a cash amount and some can be redeemed for items at specific stores in town. Of the 500, about 50 are actually worth something. But just dump all 500 directly over the parade route, Billy Pat said. But wait until about 2:30. The parade will be over by then. The ping pong ball drop was a new idea that the city council felt would add a little life to an event that had become rather tired. The council solicited donations from businesses in the form of cash or merchandise to be given away to any person catching a correctly numbered ball. All over town, the merchants were offering items for the ping pong ball drop. Tom Henley, Terry's husband, donated a rake and 50 pounds of horse feed from his hardware store. George Cosser sponsored 10 balls with his 2-piece dark meat specials from George's Fried Chicken. And Rick Carper donated a $15 shopping spree aboard the school bus, Rick's Rolling Store. The big prize was $50 from Mike's Mortuary, where cash had really been the only choice. Or as Mike put it, a gift certificate probably wouldn't be appreciated. By 1:30, Most of the parade participants were milling around the side street by the Vine and Olive Hotel. Roger Luker, the policeman, was trying to line everyone up by yelling through a bullhorn. No one listened. The carolers were first, followed by the Genealogical Society float. Next came Rick's Rolling Store, carrying the Royal Ambassadors and the Girls' Auxiliary from Grace Fellowship. The Daughters of the American Revolution, DAR, walked behind them, led for the 27th year by Miss Luna Myers. The problem spot in the lineup appeared to be the next entry. Betty Jo Cosser had taken 6 dogs and hitched them to a small homemade sleigh. Eliza, the youngest Cosser, was to ride in the sleigh, and the dogs, of course, were not happy. Complicating matters were the papier-mâché reindeer antlers Betty Jo had tied to their heads. No sooner than the dogs were hitched up and Christy and Tony Hamilton pulled into line with their horse and buggy, Governor. And the horse, Governor, took a bite out of the wreath that was attached to the Cosser sleigh, which terrified Eliza. She ran screaming from her position in line and was immediately followed by the dogs, who were chased by the members of the Sargent Springs High School Marching Barracuda Band. After what seemed like forever, calm was restored and the parade got started. Tony Hamilton glanced at his watch. It was 2:30 on the nose. What idiot positioned us behind these dang dogs? He hissed to Christy as she smiled and waved at Pastor Ward on the sidewalk. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold Governor out of that sleigh much longer. Suddenly, a shadow passed over, and they all looked up. Struggling to hold Governor, who was frightened by the noise, Tony hollered to his wife, "What's he doing here so early?" "I don't know," Christy yelled back. "But if he drops those balls now, we'll have a situation on our hands." "Don't worry about it," he said. "Dave's not that stupid. There's no way he'll drop 500 ping pong balls right into the middle of a parade." But he did. At first, Dave had been confused. Hadn't Billy Pat said 2:30? He wondered because it looked to him as if the parade was still happening. Oh well, he decided. Billy Pat specifically said 2:30. Dave is known around town as a person who will do exactly as he is asked. Exactly. If you want him to dust the bean fields behind your house, you'd better tell him exactly which bean fields. Otherwise, Dave might dust the bean fields behind your house into the next county. Dave was not a rocket scientist, but he was not in a rocket. He had 500 ping pong balls that he had been instructed to drop at 2:30. It was 2:30. Bombs away. Dave lined up on Main Street, dropped the plane down, and hit the trigger. The noise of the plane was too much for the animals. The ping pong balls floating unexpectedly out of the air, and the knowledge that one of them was worth $50 was too much for the people. It was bedlam. The dogs panicked and ran into the crowd by the library. They tripped and tangled and fell over their antlers. Governor reared up and took the Hamiltons careening through Norman's parking lot, where Miss Edna Thigpen, who is deathly afraid of horses, hit him with her purse and sent him running back into the street. The band, meanwhile, ditched their instruments and competed with the Daughters of the American Revolution for the ping pong balls. Dave, having dumped most of the balls between Henley's Hardware and Rollins gas station, just continued to dive on the spot watching the action. Folks, normally easygoing and polite, were quite literally stampeding each other for the little white prizes. It was the suddenness of it all, the unexpected early arrival of the possibility of something free that did them in. Pastor Ward, on his hands and knees chasing a ball, was heard to say, "I can't believe I'm doing this." But he did it anyway. He captured 14 ping pong balls and won a root beer from Norman's Groceteria. All in all, most of the townspeople had pretty much the same luck. When everything was said and done, it didn't seem worth the effort. Tom Henley won his own rake, and between George, Betty, Joe, and their 3 kids, they got back 4 of their dark meat specials. As for Dave, he is blissfully unaware that the town will not be using his services next year. The city council is already looking for a new, safer tradition to start, one that doesn't require planes or objects falling from the sky, or Dave, for that matter, who was not only paid for his efforts, but turned in the one ball that blew back into the cockpit with him and made an extra $50. All right, you guys, have a good rest of the day. We will see you Thursday. I appreciate you being here with me and listening, and spread the word. We'll be back Thursday with some more fun. Bye-bye.